G'day everybody, my name's Andrew Ward. Today I'm going to be talking with Professor Paul Thambar from Monash University. Hello Paul.
Hi Andrew, how are you?
Very well. Paul, if you would be so kind, could you give us a bit of a brief introduction about yourself?
So I'm with the Monash Business School in the Department of Accounting. I've had a fairly eclectic background. I did work in industry for about 20 years before I moved into academia. I worked at UTS in Sydney, and now I'm based in Monash Business School in Melbourne in the Department of Accounting. My area of research is around performance measurement in different contexts. And one of the contexts that I'm working in the last few years has been co-ops and mutuals. So I came to the sector quite raw and not really knowing anything about it apart from my membership of organizations like NRMA, which are mutuals. But having come into the sector, I just find that it's a very interesting business model. And one that requires proper performance measurement, which is unfortunately lacking for a number of reasons, which I'll share as we go along.
Well, Paul, I'm really looking forward to this conversation on mutual value measurement. There's an old saying that what gets measured matters and what matters gets measured. So
yep.
I'm going to do for us and for the benefit of people watching this video, play a short video that you and the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals put together to explain mutual value management, and then we might come back to the video. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Excellent.
In our changing world, people are looking for organisations that serve a greater purpose, organisations they can trust, and businesses that aren't purely about profit. As values-based businesses, cooperatives and mutuals do more than just generate an economic return. Co-ops and mutuals provide benefits to their members. They give back to their local communities, and they positively influence markets. But that value has always been hard to measure. And as more and more businesses enter the for-purpose space that co-ops and mutuals naturally occupy, communicating the unique value and impact of CMEs has become more important than ever. That's why the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals has worked with Monash University and the sector to develop a new way of measuring what matters to CMEs. It's called Mutual Value Measurement. Mutual Value Measurement, or MVM, provides a common language for CMEs to measure and communicate the total value they generate. And by giving cooperatives and mutuals a consistent way of measuring their performance, the sector can better highlight the powerful impact it has on the whole economy. Here's how it works. MVM can be used alongside existing reporting processes and accounting methods to enhance value measurement and communication. And it can be used and adapted by CMEs of all sizes and from any industry. MVM features 6 dimensions of value unique to cooperatives and mutuals. And as intergenerational businesses, sustainability is integral to every dimension. The commerciality dimension refers to the generation of sustainable economic value for current and future members of a CME. Shaping markets is a key dimension for CMEs. It refers to the positive impact a co-op or mutual has in creating a sustainable marketplace. The member relationships dimension refers to the ongoing meaningful relationship between a CME and its members. Community relationships measures the positive impact a CME has on the broader community. Ecosystem and reciprocity measures a CME's role in a mutually beneficial, sustainable sector. The mutual mindset is the 6th dimension. It measures how a CME acts ethically, sustainably and responsibly. MVM provides a new toolkit for CMEs to measure their total value, allowing CMEs to better understand their impact, to measure it more consistently, and to help the sector communicate that value to the community. To find out more, visit bccm.coop. Join us in the MVM revolution. because the time to measure our important impact is now.
So thank you, Paul. A few quick questions. What a fantastic little video production. But I guess, what was the problem that mutual value measurement was aiming to address?
Yeah, that's a good question, Andrew. So if you think of a mutual, they create value in a number of different ways, as we have identified through the mutual value measurement framework. By the way, the term mutual value is just a label given to sort of capture the total value that these organizations create. So it would be helpful to understand this, the problem, by looking at one of the dimensions. So think about the dimension of shaping markets. So very often a mutual or a cooperative is the only one in the marketplace that is actually providing some sort of competition to commercial firms. So if you take road mutuals, for example, no one really provides roadside assistance effectively. And whether you're living in Sydney or whether you're living in Burke, the cost is the same. So in that space, a road mutual is shaping the market. Yes, you have insurance providers who come and give you roadside assistance in addition as an add-on to car insurance. But very often, you find that the person who comes to help you when you have a breakdown is a road mutual anyway. So how do you measure that value? Accounting frameworks and quantification methodologies that have been developed over centuries cannot help you with that, because accounting, for example, essentially works only when there are transactions that can be captured, classified, and recorded in a meaningful way. But you can't capture a lot of these transactions. And this is a fundamental problem we have with a lot of things that happen in our world today. There are a number of them. How do you measure the value of staying at home and looking after a family for a female or a male, as opposed to going and engaging in economic activity?
And I think it's very contextual. If you locked your keys in your car in your driveway versus it's midnight and you're in the bush 100 miles away from the nearest town, that roadside assistance might have different value within the context.
Yeah. So these organizations have struggled to be able to measure. They've intuitively known that they create value that is more than what's recorded in their P&L and balance sheets, but they've been unable to articulate that. Now, the flip side of this problem is that when you don't measure, as you said, you can't manage, nor can you communicate the value that you create and the impact that you have on the economy. Now, the BCCM do an annual report called the State of the Economy Report in conjunction with the University of Western Australia. Based on just looking at the financials for the top 100 mutuals, they estimate that the sector contributes something like 8% to the GDP of Australia, which places them as a sector second only to mining.
Yeah, wow. Wow. And so now they've got, in addition to that economic value that's measured in GDP, all this surrounding value. The video that we watched, it seems like a very difficult problem in that some of these things are about relationships. So how do you measure each of those 6 dimensions? Can you talk me through that?
First thing to remember is that we have been conditioned over the years that to think, when you hear the word measure, we automatically think quantified numbers. Now, when we use measure, we use it in a much broader sense. So when you and I go on Facebook and put a like on a post that we see that we like, we are actually doing a measurement. When we write up a good review or a bad review for a restaurant that we've been to recently, we are providing measurement. So measurement these days, as we know it, is much broader than just quantified numbers. And the first step in this process of quantification is to be able to classify what categories of value are you creating. So the 6 dimensions that we have are basically the first step in the measurement process. So where we have said, and this is the feedback we've had from these organizations. They've been talking about, the fact that they are providing a range of services. But when we came up with the category, shaping markets, they said, yep, that's what we do. We actually shape markets. When we came up with the category called, mutual mindset, yes, they said, yep, that is how we do business. That is our approach to decision making, where we are thinking of the long term as opposed to the short term, where we have a focus on, say, the culture and trust and doing the right thing. Now, what does doing the right thing mean? You can never get a clear, a quantified number to measure doing the right thing. Is doing the right thing mean making $100 profit, $200 profit, $50 profit? So the first step in this measurement process is classification or categorization. So once you've done that, you then talk about measurement in a whole range of different ways. Yes, there will be quantified measurements, but there also will be qualitative measurement, stories and testimonials and a whole range of things. So that's the task before these organizations, as they start looking at adopting and using this framework.
And is it a self-assessment tool to understand the dimensions for a CME, or is that something that Monash or an associated organisation provides as a service to CMEs?
No. So we have developed a generic framework based on what they have told us. So we've spent 2 years with 13 organizations, talking to over 250 people from board level down to the front line, and this framework is the outcome of the analysis we have done of what they have told us. So this is a uniquely CME focused framework, unlike all the other frameworks that organizations in this sector are dabbling with, like integrated reporting, B Corp, and a whole range of other things. This is uniquely developed for their sector, and it is developed in a generic manner so that any organization within the sector can take it and customize it. So the first step in that customization process would be to start thinking about, okay, how do these dimensions relate to what I am doing? So we already know that for some, not all dimensions will be relevant to all CMEs, and that's fine. Some of them, have said to us, for us, the member and the community are the same. So it's up to them. If they define it, then they, so again, how you define and categorize and classify will then determine how you measure, and then will determine the communication, the message you send out about the value that you create.
And is there a weighting that you give to any of the particular dimensions?
Again, up to them. Again, that's one of the features of the framework. If you look at the graphic, that you probably haven't seen the slide graphic that actually shows the framework. One of the things that they have to focus on is, once they have determined the how these dimensions impact them or relate to their business, they've got to work out, okay, what is the weighting? Is one dimension more important than the other? And if so, what weighting should I give? Again, it's up to them. We have provided a generic framework and the tools and the templates that will help them work with it. And we are beginning to work with them as well. That's the second phase of our work.
It just got a bit shady as you were finishing up then, but if the implementation of the measurement is done by the CME and the weighting is done by the CME, how frequently is the reporting done? Is it done ongoingly, or is it done on an annual basis? And do you keep the weighting the same on an annual basis for each of the dimensions?
again, it's quite open. It's flexible. I mean, these are some of the issues. So as I said, we have just launched this framework at the annual BCCM CEO Summit, in November last year in Perth. We now have a whole range of these CMEs, those who took part in the study, plus those who are outside the study but part of the BCCM family, who are in conversation with us at various stages. Some are more advanced than others, where they are saying, okay, how do I work with this? What do I need to do? We have got some standard material that we share through the BCCM with those who are interested. Of course, depending on their status. So if they're a BCCM member, they will get it for next to nothing. Whereas if they're a non-BCCM member, then there is a fee arrangement in place. Separately, we are also looking at some maybe working with 3 to 5 sort of what I would call reference organizations, reasonably large, reasonably spread across different sectors. Work with them to actually help them adopt the framework, but then also look at how they're using it to be able to then keep refining the framework for the next iteration. So the first in this process is for them to start working with it, trialing it, measuring whether they do it monthly, whether they do it quarterly, whether they do it half yearly or annually. Those are decisions that they need to make, and they'll probably, seek our input at some point. The next step then is, once it's up and running for a while, then to be able to compare with other organizations. The end goal, I think, for BCCM is to be able to have a sizable group of CMEs working with this framework, so they can collectively look at the different classifications of value creation and be able to draw some sort of conclusion based on the measurement. But that's yet to evolve.
I'm going to come back to the outcome question again, but before we move to there, can I just ask if you're at liberty to tell us who were the pioneer organisations that helped you and your colleagues at Monash devise the mutual value measurement? Were you working with large CMEs or small CMEs or a mix? And if you can.
So we had 13 CMEs. They're all listed on the BCCM website in that page that deals with mutual value measurement. There were 9 large organizations spread across different sectors. So we had, for example, 2 road mutuals. We had two mutual banks. We had an agricultural co-op based in Western Australia. We had an automotive aftermarket aggregator. So the whole range of 9 large organizations. And then, in keeping with the cooperative spirit, they also said, okay, we want to get, some smaller organizations also involved. So they then invited 4 smaller co-ops to be part of the study, but the 9 large ones actually funded their involvement. So the project was entirely funded by the 9 large ones, but they wanted, and we brought in 4 other smaller ones.
Yeah. And do you have a feel for whether you think it's easier for an organization to start with mutual value measurement in their DNA, or to transition to mutual value measurement from whatever measurement they might only be doing accounting at the moment? So do you have a feeling as to new business or transition business and where you think mutual value measurement will be easiest to implement?
I mean, I guess when you say new business, you're talking about startups as opposed to established businesses?
Yeah, startup cooperatives versus existing CMAs, yeah.
It's probably not that much of a difference. It's probably easier in some ways if you're a startup. You don't have the tyranny of the infrastructure in place. So, you can start from scratch and set it up properly. Whereas if you're an established mutual or a cooperative, you already have a legacy infrastructure around reporting and systems and, ways of doing things. And you're going to now think about, adding on another layer or working out how to sort of, work with our framework. So I think the challenges will be different. Again, I come back to the point that we deliberately designed it as a generic framework that can easily be taken up by any type of organization, and we've seen that already in the trials that we have done. I should mention, Andrew, the framework was before we launched it, we tested it. It was tested by 3 of the firms in the study, 2 large ones and 1 small one, and they actually found that it was virtually unchanged from the time we gave it to them to the time they came back and said, yep, this works for us. So it is a proven framework in that sense that we have launched. So it's not just purely an academic exercise.
Yeah, and I think that's so important.
That's why there's a lot of interest in it at the moment from a lot of organizations within the sector.
It's so important. The cooperative and mutual sector has a tradition of being really practical. Like if your membership in a cooperative doesn't assist you, then it won't you won't be a member for long. So if mutual value measurement doesn't assist the cooperative and hence its members, it's not going to be adopted. So I think the fact that the BCCM is championing this, and that so many large CMEs are already involved. Well, maybe we can move now to outcome, right? What happens if half of the CMEs in existence and, they're now, it's 2021 and 1,000 CMEs are using mutual value measurement? What changes for each of those individual CMEs and the sector as a whole?
Well, I guess that would be a good position to be in if you have 1,000 CMEs. That would be roughly half the population of the sector, I think, from the numbers that I see through BCCM. They will have a framework that has been developed for the sector that they have customized and they're using. And hopefully it's providing them with good information for internal decision making. But it is also giving them information that they can individually, but also collectively, communicate to the external world, to stakeholders, like regulators, like members, suppliers, whoever, about the importance and the value of the sector. In a time, I think, where we are increasingly finding, particularly in Australia, that the listed entity, commercial business model, has a number of faults in the way applied and the way the managers are incentivized, etc. Here you see an alternate business model that is about profit for purpose. It's about profit being reinvested in the business to develop the business for provision of services to members, where members and customers are not differentiated and therefore are not optimized. So the shareholder is not optimized at the expense of the customer. So I think there's a whole range of benefits. Now, as you probably have heard, they are also developing a new capital market instrument called the Mutual Capital Instrument, which they're hoping to use to go to the marketplace to raise. It's an instrument with debt and equity features that they are launching, which hopefully will give some of the financial mutuals the ability to raise capital in the marketplace. And as we all know, when you go to the marketplace to raise capital, the first thing the analysts and the investors ask you is, tell us about your performance. And here, for the first time now, they will have a framework that they can use as part of their performance story. It's not going to be the sole framework. It's not going to be the only part of the story, but it's an important new element to their story.
And do you think individual CMEs that score well will be able to use their MVM scorecard as like a bragging right, do you believe? Or do you think it would be more of an internal rather than a marketing external facing tool?
So with the sociology of measurement and quantification, there's a feature called reactivity. So what that feature relates to is that once you start measuring, you modify behavior. So if I measure your performance, automatically, you become reflexive and you start to react to the measurement. And that is a good thing, but there can be downsides as well. But generally, that is a good thing.
Yeah.
So yes, so I expect as these organizations start using this framework, and as they start looking at the performance that they have in this more holistic manner, unlike in previous times when they only had sort of maybe inadequate frameworks. I think hopefully that will change their behavior, and it'll change the way they look at each other, they look at themselves, and sure, there might be instances where they'll have bragging rights, but given the nature of the sector and the culture and the sort of the sense that they sort of are about the member and looking after the member, I think those sort of bragging rights will be sort of tempered. I think we won't see it like in the listed commercial arena where the bigger you are, the stronger you are, and therefore you're the better one, and everyone else needs to be squeezed out. So I think it'll be a different type of bragging.
Yeah, maybe they'll be. I'd hate to use this word, but co-benefit. So in the carbon, they talk about the benefit you've brought the carbon out of the atmosphere, but
possibly the sector as a whole may have better bragging rights vis-a-vis the listed firm. So if you're a mutual bank and you're being squeezed by the big four continuously and being told that you're insignificant, now you have a story to tell that might be more acceptable to the investors and the analysts, comparable to what the a listed bank is doing.
Excellent. Well, can you give me, I know you've talked about stage 1 and stage 2 of the measurement if you were starting off, but maybe one of the examples that you worked with, the 3 that helped, can you give us a story arc of how they started, how they implemented, and where they are with it now? And that might give us a future pathway for others, other CMAs.
Yeah, so they were only field testing it. So I've got to be, when we finished the study at the end of last year, we had 3 organizations that had taken the framework and had field tested it over a period of 6 weeks, which basically meant that they took the framework and they held workshops internally with our involvement to look at the different parts of the framework and to come up with what it would look like for them, to think about measures. I mean, we had some common metrics that we shared with them, but we also asked them to think about any unique sort of measures that they might want to use. So that's all they did. So at the end of last year, no one had actually said, we are going to implement it. But since then, we know there is one of the organizations in that study are actively in the process of implementing it.
Yep.
We don't have any visibility of that as yet, but we're hoping to catch up with them shortly. And there are a number of other organizations, both within the study and outside the study, as I said, who are sort of talking to us. So in terms of the runway, the way we are seeing it at the moment, as I indicated, was there's probably 2 parts. One path would be where an organization says, okay, let me have a look at the framework and all the support material that you have. Yeah. And they end up paying a fee to BCCM if they're not a BCCM member. There's a whole range of things that the BCCM are looking at. And they will have the access to that material, and then they will work through that on their own. They may have conversations with us, but that's just a process for them to sort of get clear internally whether they want to run with it. Separately, to support that process, we are running a webinar, a free webinar at the end of February, which has been publicized through BCCM to anyone who's interested in a 1-hour webinar. And in the middle of the year, in July, we are going to be running a measurement summit, a 2-day workshop, which will bring people who are by then have committed to actually taking on the framework. And we will then work with them in workshop sessions, and hopefully they'll sort of come in with an understanding of the framework, but we'll go away with maybe hopefully a draft framework that they have developed in workshops with each other and with hopefully this organization that's already started implementing. We are hoping to get them to come and sort of share their experiences. So there's 2 paths that we are going down at the moment. So it's still early days. I mean, these are all developing, so we haven't sort of tied down anything.
Well, I think early days, it's still exciting days. It's exciting for CMEs to be getting more measurement than just on the money, because there is competition beyond money. I mean, I'm hopeful for it that these measurements outside of money might lead to friendlier financing terms for mutuals or lower interest rates for mutuals. Do you see something like that on the horizon, or what do you hope for CMEs out of this measurement? Out of MVM being implemented.
I think it is a journey, Andrew. I mean, accounting, you may or may not realize, has taken us over 500 years to develop. And if you go back in time, in say 200 years ago, in the House of Lords in England, there were people saying, "What is this thing called profit? This is nonsense. No business will ever be able to accurately calculate a profit." And we are on a journey, and this journey will take a while to run. We won't get the same outcomes that we are now seeing with quantified accounting type measurements, with what we are doing. But hopefully, the journey that we are on will take us to that point, and there will be some key, milestones where we will see things happening. I expect in the next few years for the measurement framework, if it is taken up and used reasonably widely within the sector, it'll start putting the sector as a whole on the map. Yeah. It'll help them tell their performance story in a more structured manner. It will make the model more accessible and open. And I think this is just one aspect of all the work that BCCM and others are doing to raise the understanding and the visibility of the sector. Yep. So if we can make a contribution in that sense, it would be great.
Well, I think that's fantastic, Paul. I'd love to maybe catch up again later in the year after your summit. I think there's a whole host of things we could discuss, like the move some of the more tech-savvy mutuals are moving towards, instead of a traditional standard type of accounting, they're moving to I want to say ERP, event resource, and other type accounting, and how mutual value management might work with some of those types of accounting processes. I
mean, ERP is more technology, it's more system than accounting.
It isn't,
and that's been around for ages.
Yeah, Paul, I think what I'm saying is there will be an opportunity, hopefully 6 months from now, to have another conversation and see where.
Sure. Yeah, happy to chat.
Yeah, I think this is really exciting, and I would encourage anybody who's watching and is involved with a co-op or mutual to get their co-op or mutual in touch via the bccm.coop website. Watch the video, look at the resources, and get involved. Paul, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a good day.